No
So
problem.
thank you so much for your patience with me this morning in our technology.
Awesome. No problem.
Okay. So Anthony, we're so excited to talk to you today. I just have to shout out the fact that first of all, I love your top, and we're both from Texas.
Yes, we are.
Went to Prairie View. You went to TCU and played football.
Hmm.
So nothing
Know
like
the area.
Nothing like us. I first want to dive into your story a little bit because I was very inspired by it as
Mhm.
I'm someone who pivoted and changed course in my own career. And so many other people are doing that in the midst of the pandemic. People are going from one career to the next, a
Yeah.
complete 360. So your story, I just feel like will resonate and help somebody so much. You were playing in the NFL for the Miami Dolphins and then Kansas City Chiefs, and then you concluded with Tampa Bay.
Hmm.
When you decided that you wanted to switch courses and go from the NFL to pursuing a career in acting, two big
Yeah.
careers, right? Both
NFL to SAG. Yeah.
are really big. Anthony, I want you to talk us through, if you don't mind, your decision to pivot from football to acting, and how did you know it was time?
uh, well, here's the thing. I mean, knowing when it was time, it was something that was always with me. So since I was a kid, everybody always says, what was your plan B after football? And it's like football was the plan B, to be honest. I mean, the main thing was I wanted to be an actor growing up. And I think a lot of that stemmed from my father. My dad is Nigerian, my mother's Puerto Rican. And so for my dad, to relate to American culture, he loved movies and he loved watching kind of TV shows and all that stuff. So I kind of adopted that, especially on, during the once a week, I'd say at least, my father would take us to the movie theater and we'd go as early as, 10 o'clock or whenever they opened and stay all the way till, 9:30, 10 sometimes, and watching 3 to 4 movies. So as a 5-year-old, I loved it. I was all about it because, you just get snacks. I had nachos and popcorn and I didn't care. I ate everything they gave me. But yeah, right. The next thing that happened though was watching all of those movies. I wanted to be whatever I saw on screen, and my father had explained to me that that is what an actor is, and I was like, "What's that?" And he told me what an actor does, and I that was it for me. That's all I wanted to do from that moment on. So I think it hit probably about 8 years old where I realized like, oh, no one's gonna not, they're not gonna not let me be a football player.
Right.
When you're 6'6", 360 in Texas, you play football. Somebody's going to snatch you up.
So
Uh, somebody's going to be like, "Come here, you ain't. No, you're not going to go work at Circuit
get on
Six."
this scale.
Uh, right. So immediately, I started playing football, and I had this idea that I was going to use football to get where I needed to go. It was this idea of deferred gratification, that if I can do this and satisfy all of these things, that it would help me get closer to my eventual goal, which is to be an actor. And once again, don't ask me to do it twice. I don't think it would work out. I was super blessed, lucky, fortunate, whatever you want to call it, to be able to do that. And so I made sure that I did as well as I possibly could in football, because in my mind, at least in the mind of an 8-year-old, I was like, the better I did in football, the closer it would bring me to acting.
Mhm.
And so when I finally got to the NFL, and I knew I wasn't going to be a 10, 12-year guy. I knew that. I knew it was going to be a good start for me. And I
Right.
wanted to just make sure that it helped me in life financially, because in all honesty, for me, money is kind of an annoyance. I just don't really understand it. I don't like it. I hate the need for it,
Right.
because of the fact that it's just one of those things that it distracts away from what you truly want to do, which is
Ooh,
happiness. You know what I mean? I feel like
that's a
happiness is,
word, and that is a word.
it's underrated. It really is. And I think the only question that matters kind of at the end of your life is were you happy? And it's not how
Mm.
much was in your bank account or how much you got, or would you make it? And I think that's the biggest thing. So for me, I wanted to make sure that that wasn't a factor, that money was taken care of and I could just focus on doing what I want to do.
Right.
And I think when I finally had the opportunity, I think I got a minor injury when I was in Tampa, and I was getting released, and it was like, my agency was like, just wait, we'll get you with another team pretty soon. And I just didn't want that. And I was like, I think now's the time. I'm vested. I've got a little nest put away. So let's do this. And I didn't say anything to anyone. I literally took off, called an ex-teammate that I had played with. He lived in San Diego. He moved back to Arizona because he had retired, and was like, "Hey man, take the apartment. I don't like moving. So if you sell my furniture, we'll call it even." I was like, done. So that's what I did, and I stayed there for about a month, and I drove back and forth to Los Angeles and just trying to get a lay of the land and seeing where things were and where I wanted to live and parts of the city, and from there it just kind of worked. I had an audition. It was my first ever audition. It was for Burn Notice. It was like a webisode for like the Honda Genesis or Hyundai Genesis, and I booked it. And I played a I played an Italian bank robber named Silvio.
Wow.
And yeah, I know. And I remember they called me and they were like, "Hey, you got this part. You're playing Silvio, the bank robber." And I go, "But I'm not Italian." And they go, "Do you want the part or not?" And I was like, "No, I'm fine. All good. That sounds great." So on that, and the funny thing is I met kind of everything that helped from there, right? So I met my future writing partner, Josh Kovit there. I met, friends that eventually introduced me to my mentor who introduced me to my commercial agent. And then with those friends, I got a manager and which got an agency. And little by little, it went from all these commercial auditions to now TV and film stuff. And now it's all TV and film stuff. And we've been fortunate. Like I said, it's been a crazy ride that I'm really, really enjoying.
Did you ever, Anthony? That's why I wanted to hear this story from you, from your mouth to my ears,
Yeah.
because the viewers' ears. Because I've watched your interviews and I've even, read some of your interviews, but it's nothing like hearing it from the person tell it. You know what I mean? Like it is, because it's even more inspiring. Did you ever feel like, I know you said there was no plan B, this was your plan B, but did you ever feel like, what would I do if it didn't work? Or were you like, this is gonna work regardless? How did you process that thought? Like coming from the NFL to acting, were
Mhm.
you nervous at all? How did you deal with those emotions and feelings?
It's kind of one of those things that when you get swallowed up into the passion of what you're doing or what you want to do,
Mm-hmm.
those kinds of things are almost like they're just they're non-factors
Right.
because my my uncle always had this thing, and he told me this at like 10 years old, which I thought was awesome. Later on at 10 I was like, okay. But he said, he goes, there's three types of people: there's cocky, there's
Mm-hmm.
confident, and there's convinced. And
Mm-hmm.
when you have people that are cocky, they basically have, they're 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 just they're not sure of themselves, and they're using their mouth to kind of compensate for the fact that they're unsure and they're insecure and they don't really know what they're doing, so they kind of come off that way. When you have people that are confident, they're secure in themselves, but they're hoping for the best but expecting the worst. What I
Right.
mean? You're just trying to kind of make sure that things go right. When you're
Right.
convinced, no one can tell you that this shirt isn't red.
Oh,
No one can convince you of that. You are just convinced that this is what you're supposed to do and that
mm,
this is what your purpose is. And I think for me, that was what it was, is that there was no plan B because there was no need for one. This is
right.
what I was put here to do, and this is what this soul in this body was made to do. And
Mm,
for me, there was no coming back from that. They call it burning the boats. If you want to take the island, you burn the boats because you
mm.
don't give yourself an option for anything else. You have to win or else you die. And I think that it was that strong for me. And I know it sounds very like strong and passionate, but that's what it is for me. And I think that's kind of always my mindset going into something, is that you're going to get all of me 100%. And if you don't, then I'm not going to do it. And
Mm.
I think that's kind of where that came from, of not being afraid that things weren't going to work out. I knew things weren't going to work out. It's how you pivot off of that. You're not going to get the job all the time. You're going to have people that doubt you. You're going to have people that see you different. I lost a lot of friends when I left the NFL because a lot of them were like, you have this opportunity to do this thing that extremely few people get to do.
Right.
No one gets to do this, and you're getting a chance to do it, and you're just going to walk away from it to do this
Mm.
other thing that is impossible to do, that nobody does, and you're going to try and be successful at that. And I'm like, yeah,
Wow.
why not? And so, I mean, what else are we do? What else are we doing? Why be here if you're just going to kind of mundanely go through your day and not expect more out of
Right.
your life, deserve more. And I mean, and it's just the way you should be in life. It's like you deserve better. My wife always laughs at me because her closet, like, her closet is always a mess. You know what I mean? And because she's running around, she's a superhero. She does everything. So like her closet's a mess, and my closet is constantly like in line, and everything's kind of put away. And she was like, "Why do you do that? Like, why do you take the time to do that?" And I go, "Because I think I deserve it. Because I treat myself like my own personal assistant, where it's like Anthony likes his shoes this way. He likes his clothes this way. He deserves to have that because he works so hard. He deserves to have his clothes put away and all of his stuff presented to him in this way so he can have it. And I think that's how I kind of, you have to set that standard for yourself that you deserve more. And I think that's kind of the way I approach most things.
Anthony, look, it's too early for you to be preaching and giving me therapy this morning. That was what? Okay, I'm convinced. And that was, ooh, okay. You like Anthony. Okay.
I
Speaking
try.
of your,
I try.
speaking of
I've been up for probably what, 6 hours now. So I think we're
same, I've been up since 5. You're in LA, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Speaking of your wife, Anthony, I want to talk about your wife a little bit because she was pivotal, right?
Yes.
Your decision to continue to pursue acting and not give up. I want to ask you, how important was it to have a support system for you when you talked about you knew things wouldn't work out, but it's how you pivot and get through. I love that perspective also, but how important what has it been for you to have your wife and your family as your support system as you navigate this
Oh,
different terrain of career?
yeah. I mean, it's invaluable. I think that the problem that a lot of people run into is they don't have someone that is either willing to check them or willing to kind of give them a real perspective on things. And I think I've been very fortunate to have that, whether it's, for anyone, from my publicist all the way to my wife, it's my managers, my agents, everybody has been very real. And I think I welcome that. So I think that energy comes out there where it's just like, if I'm wrong, then tell me I'm wrong.
Right.
And I think it's the idea that, and it's the same way that I'm running my production company, where it's like, it's not ego driven.
Mm,
And I think that's a huge thing, is that in this, especially in this industries, or the two industries that I've been a part of, it's a lot of ego. And it's a lot of people that are like, I've been here this long, so I know everything and I'm infallible. And that's not true. It's just not. I'm
right.
sorry. Except Meryl Streep. She's perfect. Other than that, it's just a thing. But I think when you have people around you that are willing to say, hey, listen, that's a really good idea, Aunt, but I think this is better. And I have to be willing to look at that and go, you know what, that is better. I'm going to take that one. Mine was all right, but that's a better one. My wife does that for me. She's been, and funny enough, she's my acting coach. I have my mentor who kind of deals with big stuff, but the day-to-day auditions or adjusting for roles or whatever, shoot day we have, she's the one that's there because she's not part of this industry. And she has that eye to look at it and go, it doesn't sound like you. And she'll
Right.
do something like, she'll say, remember when we went to that party and this person offered you this and you looked them that way and you said this? She goes, do it like that. And it's like,
Mhm.
oh, because she knows me best. And I
Mhm.
think that comes through. And it's why I think I hear this a lot in my acting when people go, you seem really grounded. It seems like it's really you. It seems
Yeah.
like you're having a lot of fun. And
Mhm.
that's kind of what I've held on to, is that I never want to sound inauthentic, or I never want to sound like it's not me.
Right.
It's not a part of me, because I feel like every character that I play, no matter what it is, it's just kind of it's a scale, like a sliding scale of who I am. Whether it's this like arrogant, selfish prick, or it's like this altruistic, like really, really nice, good person. It's
Right.
whatever the sliding scale is. It's all me. It's just the different kind of parts that you access of yourself. And I think she knows how to activate that in me.
Mm.
Along with being, like I said, a superhero that takes care of the kids and does Pilates and works and coaches people and heals women's bodies and does all kinds of stuff. So she's incredible. I clearly don't deserve this person. I
Right.
got lucky enough to kind of like get her and draft her in before anybody else had a look. So
Lucky
I,
you.
I lucked out. I lucked out.
You definitely lucked up. I want to wrap this topic up with what piece of advice, Anthony, would you share with those who are watching, who are in the midst of wanting to pivot? I talked a little bit about at the beginning, the pandemic has paused and forced a lot of
Right.
people to have to change course. They didn't want to, but if they were forced to.
Yeah.
And they're in the decision, they're in the process of trying to decide, what do I do? I want to do the thing that I love, or I want to try this, but I'm unsure. What advice would you share with them?
Well, I'm gonna say this because this might come off a little harsh, but I'm gonna say this to start. Like I said before, everything I do is at a humming 10.
Mhm.
It is 1,000%, 1,000 miles an hour in that direction, and that's what it is. So
Mhm.
for me, when you ask that question, I say this. I say, analyze, sit down in a room by yourself, be very quiet, and kind of look and analyze what you want to do and what you're currently doing.
Mhm.
And if what you want to do if you look and in between those two things of what you're doing and what you want to do, if there's anything in between there that would make you happy, anything in there that would make you happy besides those 2 points, you should go do that.
Mm,
You have a lot of people here that they're currently like a waiter or they're working for a company and they want to be an actor, right? And those are your 2 points. And if in between that you're like, man, if I was a chef, I'd love that. That'd be great. You should go do that. Because if being an actor feels like this, like the waiter job you have or anything else, and it feels like a job and you get an audition, you're like, oh, God, I don't know if I have time for this, and that. You should go do something else. And that's not being harsh, like, well, then get out of here. It's one of those things of this business is so demanding. It is so humbling. It knocks you down. It kicks you in the teeth. You're constantly told you're not good enough. You're constantly shown that you're not good enough. You're constantly critiqued and prodded and analyzed and put in a room with 50 people that look just like you and told to like be different. And you make choices and people tell you that those are dumb choices, but then you realize later on in life that those were the best choices. That person was the problem. They just weren't experiencing them. There's so much hardship and things that happen to you in this business
mhm.
that if you don't have the passion and that unending or unwavering loyalty to this dream, then you shouldn't do it. It should be oxygen to you. It
Mm,
should be the same feeling you get when you're held underwater and you can't breathe and you're starting to panic. That's what it should feel like every day that you don't get to act or you don't
wow.
get to do that thing that you want to do. So if
Right.
that's not the feeling you have about it, you should definitely go do something else because it means you're cheating yourself and you're wasting your own time. Because the thing is, when you wake up and you're 50, you're not going to be like, oh man, I spent my life doing that thing it was cool. It was fine.
Right.
Nobody wants that.
Right.
Everybody wants to wake up at 50, 60, 70, 80 years old on your deathbed and go, I did it.
Mhm.
And it doesn't necessarily mean you have to win an Oscar. I don't care if you're in your basement recording on your phone and it's just you and your buddy and you
Right.
guys are acting out scenes to no one. You're acting. That's a win. That's a win. That's it. You won. Congratulations. Now, if you get other people to get to see that,
Mhm.
even better. If you get other people to get to pay for that,
Mm.
I mean, and then if you get recognized for it, like you win a statue, man, come on now. Come on. Come on.
Wow. Anthony, you need to be a motivational speaker too, my you, you have
Wow.
motivated me so much this morning. I know the people watching this are, I mean, if y'all aren't inspired, I don't know what to say. Um, so moving on to your illustrious career that you
Yeah.
had so far. We loved you in Shameless. I loved you on Insecure. You were
Oh,
dating
thanks.
Molly, Raven's Home, and now we absolutely adore you in Netflix's Family Reunion. And I want to talk about that because your role on Raven's Home led to your audition for Family Reunion. Can you talk a little bit about that? I feel like
Yeah. Yeah.
you
I mean, once
are
again,
always connecting with you.
yeah. Once again, the recurring character of my life, my wife, is the one that played a pivotal role in this. She should be here, actually. No, I'm kidding.
Hey,
Uh,
what?
I know, right? No, she's with the kids. See, this is how it goes.
Right.
Uh, uh, so I got into a point in my career at that time. It was really early as a career, but it was like I just kind of was like 3 or 4 years in. And my manager, we had this discussion because at that time I think I had done like 2 or 3 Disney Nickelodeon kind of things in a row, and I was and not that there was anything wrong with it, but they were kids shows, and I was
Right.
like, I'm not doing that anymore. I don't want to kind of get pigeonholed into that genre. I don't want to stay in that area. I wanted to do things. I wanted to do hour-long dramas. I wanted to do heavy things.
Right.
So this audition, we had talked about that, and I was like, I'm not doing those anymore. I don't want to audition for them. I don't want to do it. My manager sends me over the Ravens Home audition for Coach Spitz, and I
Mhm.
go, I didn't even read it. I was like, I'm not doing that. I'm going to reject it. I'll email him a little bit later and tell him like I'm not doing that. Just because I was like, that's not the direction. It's not feeding that flame of where we want to go. So it's not
Right.
going to happen. So I'm sitting there watching TV. Care goes, my wife's name is Caroline, I call her Care. Care goes and grabs the audition, and she's kind of just sitting at the dining room table, and she's like, and she's cracking up. And I look over, and I'm like, so funny. And she was like, it's you. I know you don't want to do it. You should read it. It's really funny. And so I'm like, all right, fine. So I read it. I start cracking up, and immediately she laughs because she sees me pull out the highlighter, and I'm highlighting notes, and I'm doing all kinds of stuff. And she's like, "See, you're into it." So I do the audition. I go there, and I see all these people and thing, and I'm like, oh great. And so we do the audition. People are cracking up in the audition room. I get the part, so I'm like, oh great, great. At least it's funny. It's fine. We do that, and we're doing. I think I'd done probably like 3 episodes of Raven's Home, and then the head writer for that show, Anthony Hill, was walking along set, and I was kind of just practicing my golf swing, just trying to, do. And he sees it, and he goes, "Hey man, you play golf?" I was like, "Yeah, I play golf." And he's like, "We should play golf sometime." I was like, "Sure, sounds good." So we
Right.
play golf, we get to know each other, we become really good friends. And he calls me one day and he was like, "Listen, I have a friend of mine, Meg Deloach, and she's coming up with this new show called Family Reunion. And it's about this ex-football player who moves from Seattle to Georgia with his family, and that." And I go, "Are you messing with me? Like that's an ex-football player that like pivots." And I'm like, "Is this a joke? Like, are you kidding?" He's like, "No." He goes, "I want you to audition for Mose, the lead." And I
Mhm.
go, "One, I'm not a big enough name to lead a show on Netflix like that. I'm a guy who at this time in my career, I'd had like a couple of recurrings and mainly like top of show guest stars. So I was like, I'm at that kind of level. Like I don't have the clout to hold a show. Like they're not going to trust me with it. I can do it. I'm 100% capable. It's just that I don't think the network or the creator is going to be like he's recognizable enough." So I told him, I said, "Listen, you can help me if you want. I'll audition for his brother, or something like that, like, off lead, so that way I can have a nice recurring and it builds my resume." And I'm like, "Oh, cool. You got 8 episodes on this one show." So that's what I was hoping for. He goes, "Audition for it. I think you'll like it." I was like, "All right, cool." So I audition for it. I do the audition, I do the callback, and then I hear nothing for 2 months.
How long do you? Oh, 2 months. Oh my God. Oh my God.
My wife every day is like this, just kind of like, "What is going on? Like, why?" And nothing. 2 months, I hear nothing. And mind you, I'm playing golf with Anthony every week at this point. Like, we're seeing each other. I'm doing the thing of I'm not asking about it. I'm waiting for him to kind of like offer like what they're doing. He's like, "Yeah, it's just the process. Like, don't worry about it. Like, we'll just see what's going to happen." So 2 months later, my wife is pregnant.
Wow.
We're she's been pregnant this whole time, but she's pregnant. It's 10 o'clock at night. She's pregnant. We're about to get into bed. We literally pull the covers off. Ding, on my phone comes the test for the
Wow.
next day.
The next day.
Next day is the test
Wow.
for Family Reunion for Mose. And I was like, so she's like, "Come on." So we get out of bed. We audition.
I love her. Shout out
Yeah.
to she's like, come
She's a
on, let's
gang member. She is a gang member. She's just like, "Let's go." And
I
so
love her.
immediately is like, let's get it. So we work on it for a couple of hours that night, and then finally get to bed at midnight. The next morning we go, they cancel the test. So we I think a week or two later, we end up, auditioning or testing, and Anthony, of course, calls me on my way. I ran out of there. He calls me on my way home, and he's just like, "Hey man, listen, thanks for coming in. We really appreciate it. You were so close, but the way things go." And I was like, "Yeah, honestly, I appreciate the opportunity." And like I said, I just, he's like, "Man, shut up. You got it." And I was like, "I'm sorry." And this is what happened. I'm driving and I go, I'm sorry, what?" And I'm sort of, so
I
I pull
love
over
it.
and I was like, "Anthony, can you just not like, can you just not, like, no joking right now, just be dead serious. What are you saying?" And he was like, "You booked it. You got Mose. Like, you're," and I was like, "Are you saying that I'm going to be the lead on a TV show, like my own show?" And he was like, "Yes, you start a week from now. So, get ready." And I freaked out. I lost it. I went home. My wife and I cried. We held my daughter. She spilled water all over me. I didn't care. I was like, "I don't care. We're fine now." So for me, that's kind of the way it happened. I mean, that was my kind of point of view. I'm sure my wife is going to be like, "I was stressed the entire time." She was stressed. I honestly was at this point where it was this kind of cathartic place where I was like, whatever happens, happens. If it's supposed to be, it's supposed to be. And if it's not, it's not. But it worked out.
Anthony, so many things, but the most important thing for me is that you were hoping for like a recurring, like a
Yeah,
brother. You were
yeah.
hoping for that, and then look what God did. I mean,
That's exactly what I said. Because and how this industry goes.
right.
Whether it's talent or not, there is a factor that you have to kind of consider, which is bringing fans in, bringing eyes to the show. And if you're a guy that isn't super recognizable, I'm not at a level where I'm at a Winston Duke yet, or like an Aldous Hodge or somebody like that. I'm getting there, and I will be there. But right at that
You're
point, I wasn't there yet, and so it's one of those things that I was like, I really don't think business wise they would do that, but at the end, I was told that, they took my audition tape and they auditioned it versus a bunch of celebrity athletes and a bunch of other actors that were kind of in the writer's room was the one that chose. They were the ones that were like, we like him. So it
That
worked out.
I am blown away. Family Reunion is your first series regular role.
Mhm.
Talk to us a little bit about your character, which oddly similar to
Yeah, right.
your real life. Talk to us a little bit about your character. Did you have to prep? Did you have to interview yourself and take notes from yourself to prepare for this role?
No, no. Honestly, Mose was such an easy coat to put on, because of the fact that I was able to relate to the idea that you had this career that was very potent, whether it be in finances or whether it be in recognizability or just entertainment, whatever it is. It was a potent career that you suddenly are just like, I'm done,
Right.
and moving into Georgia, which is a complete change in lifestyle, right? So I was able to relate to that, and I think it made it easy, especially when I found out that Tia was going to be my wife, because we're both goofy and she likes to play. So
Right.
from day one, we would obviously stay on script, but we would do things that would activate the other person. And when you had that chemistry, immediately we're like, oh, this is going to be fun, and it became easy. And then we just play. And so playing Mose for me was something that was just, I talked about earlier, where it's like different parts of yourself. Mose
Mhm.
was dead center. He was right there. There wasn't much that I had to do. We differ on a few things, but for the most part, that character and I aligned pretty well. So that gave me the freedom to play. So now you didn't have to think about an accent or dialogue or how it relates or your point of view about the characters. I saw everything Mose sees. So I was able to kind of just play, and it elevates kind of the production and the performance, because now you're able to have that freedom to do whatever you want because you're not thinking about the other stuff.
Right. How blessed are you to get you look? How blessed are you to get this call? Family Reunion first premiered in July of 2019, and
Mhm.
part three of the hit show is coming back
April
in
5th.
April next week. I'm ready. I'm
Yeah.
ready. I got my popcorn ready. What stories can we expect to see this go round?
Well, here's the thing. I think we found our stride as a production. I think this time around we were kind of in the pocket, and we really felt we knew the characters, we knew our relationships. So we were able to kind of have more leeway in terms of comedy. We were able to have more leeway in terms of topics that we addressed. So we were on the topics of race relations and the police and kids and all that other stuff in the first season. I think in the second season we kind of mature a bit and get to the point where now we're talking about more interpersonal relationships. So now it's like Jade and how not to become like a girlfriend chameleon to every guy she dates, right?
I
And
love
it's like it's Mose and Coco battling through the finances that we have to kind of get through now because the money isn't there. So
it.
now there isn't that cure all for everything. So now it's harder to parent. It's harder to say no. It's harder to get things done and fix things. There's an episode where the car breaks down, and now there's no money to just be like, oh yeah, we'll just fix it with this. It's like, nah, man, you got to figure out another way. And so I think all of those things now make for richer storylines and richer relationships because you have to go through adversity. And I
Mm,
think that's what we explore in season two, which makes it really, really fun and really funny, because now everybody's a little more comfortable. So it's funny enough, as much as Madeir pokes fun at Coco in season one, it's
right.
nothing compared to what's happening in season two. So it's great, and the kids are
Right.
more mature and they get to play and do stuff. So a lot of fun, a lot of guest stars that are big names, a lot
I
of a
saw
lot of
that.
you know,
I'm like,
a lot of power in season two.
yes, Anika. I just talked to her last
Yeah,
week. She's on it. Kenya
she's
from
fantastic. Yeah.
Housewives. You guys
Kenya
have
was
a lot of guest
awesome. All of those, I'll tell you this, all of those housewives came to work. Like they did not come on set trying, being deep. They were working. They came on set. They knew their lines. They played. They were funny. Yeah. So they did such a great job. They really did. They knocked it out of the park.
Wow. I love also about this show is that it has an all black writers room.
Oh yeah.
Anthony, how important is that to have an all black writers room for a show like Family Reunion, which so many black families can relate to and
Right.
understand? How
Yeah.
important
Yeah.
is
It's for me. It's very important. I
that?
think it's one of those things that even though Family Reunion is kind of an homage or a throwback to Family Matters or like Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, back in the day and those kinds of sitcoms, the main difference in having an all black writers room is that I think back then black stories were told through a lens of how white people see us, right? It was white writers kind of writing for black people.
Right.
I think when you come to our show, now you have us writing about us for us. And that's it's a
Yeah.
small difference, but it makes such a huge impact because of the fact that now the way we talk to each other, the way that we relate to each other, the way that the point of views that we have are different than those shows back then because it isn't one size fits all for black people anymore where it's like, oh,
No.
you're black, you're clearly voting this way and seeing things this way and relating to things this way. Now people are able to look into a black family like the McKellans and see within Coco, Mose, Jade, Shaka, Mazi and Ami and Grandpa and Madeir, they all have different points of view on a certain topic. I mean, I think in season 1, Jade was dating a white guy, and Madeir and I were like, nah, that doesn't fly. We're in Georgia. Like, you're gonna
Right.
slam for that. Whereas Coco was like, why? I have a white mom. Like, what's the problem?
Right.
And so those are perspectives that back in the 90s, they would have just been like, yeah, all black people hate interracial relationships. Like, that's not the way it goes. And it's
Right.
like, what? That's not true. You know what I mean? So I think it's a grown up version of that. It's a more evolved version of those shows back in the 90s.
It definitely, you guys, bravo to you guys, the cast, the writers, everybody, the producers, the production, because you guys deliver such a relatable show that we need this right now, right? We need this right now more so than we needed post pandemic.
Right.
What has it been like for you, Anthony? I know you talked about working with Tia, but what about Miss Loretta, Mr. Roundtree? What has it been like working with them? Like, and you and Tia's chemistry,
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, like you guys could be a real life couple. Like in
We
real
we
life.
talk at least twice, 2 to 3 times a week. We're always kind of because, like I said, we're both goofy. We both have those same perspectives, and I think it's funny because I think 3 episodes into season 2,
Mm-hmm.
the production of season 2, we both were like, yeah, we communicate non-verbally now, and it's true. With the
Right.
mask on, she gives me a look, and I'm like, oh yeah, and we know we communicate that way. So our chemistry is great, and it's one of those things that I really value in the production of the show. As far as regarding Mr. Roundtree and Loretta, those two are just. I hope I'm doing that at their age. Like the way Loretta dances and sings and is running all over the place and is putting in long hours every day. I don't know how she does that, but I hope I hit that way when I'm her age. She's phenomenal. And one of the most inspiring things that happened, I think it was day one, the first time we filmed, we had a network run through,
Mm-hmm.
and it was like my first episode, and we did it, and the network cracked up and they were laughing, and Loretta was waiting in the back because I think her character comes from there, and I went back there and she looked at me and she goes, you just make it look so easy. She was like, she
Oh,
goes, you look like you're having so much fun. And that hit me because I was like, for someone like that to say that, I was like, I'm where I'm supposed to be. This is where it's supposed to be. And naturally, and we act like mother and son on set. I mean, we
right.
really treat each other that way. And as far as Richard goes, Richard was my superhero. I look back and saw him. I was like, "You're the first black superhero, man! Like that was amazing." And so it's always fun with him because between takes, we go to his trailer, we hang out, we watch the news and talk politics and talk about whatever. And he's awesome. He's just the greatest dude. He's just such a cool guy to hang out with because the stories this man has about like Muhammad Ali and James Brown. I'm just like, were you there the one night in Miami? Were you in the hotel? I'm like, were you there? So it's very much like that. It's very much a pleasure, and it's like Christmas morning every time I get to go to work in some way.
Wow.
Yeah.
For Miss Loretta to say that to you, I know that was confirmation.
Yeah.
Like
I
if
was
you
like,
had been
can you
nervous,
say it again? Just hold on, like real, just say it again.
I know, I know that was confirmation for you because if you had been in your head or in your feelings, but may not have been showing it, but in your mind you have things going
Yeah,
on, and to hear that, I know that for you
it hit.
that's
It hit home. and I loved it. I mean, and you can understand it's the first episode, it's the first network run through. You're sitting with all these people who clearly know what they're doing,
Right.
and even if I've been a recurring or a guest star, it's still like, okay, here we go. Hopefully, I'm not the weak link, because that's always the thing. Like in football, that was always it. Don't be the weakest one on the
Right.
team. You know what I mean? And that helped shore me up to be like, all right, I'm not. I'm the guy.
You definitely are the guy. Anthony, why do you think viewers connect with this show so much? What do you credit the success of this show?
I think positivity is one. This show, we try to make positive choices with everything we do, and if we do make negative choices, I think it's in such a comedic way that at the end of the day, you end up laughing about it, and it's a positive thing.
Hmm.
I think the other thing is the wholesomeness of it. I think it's one of the few shows that is on television that you actually can watch with your entire family and not have to worry. I mean, my wife and I naturally, like, if anything's on TV, we're like this with our kids. Like, no, you know what I mean? You got to pause it, you got to fast forward. I think Family Reunion is one of those shows where you can continuously watch all the episodes
Hmm.
with your kids, no matter what age, and enjoy it. And the mother and father can laugh, and the kids can laugh, and everybody's laughing for two completely different reasons.
Hmm.
I always talk about when you're writing on a family show, there's a window that's like just above kids' heads, and you write a joke to fit in that window, that the joke flies just above kids' heads, but it hits right on target with the parents.
Hmm.
The reason why it's just above the kids' heads is because the kids laugh about it too, but they're laughing for a completely different reason. And I
Wow.
think our writing staff hits that window every single time. I think they know exactly how to write for these characters, and I think they know exactly how to write for this audience in order to have everybody get some kind of joy out of it.
Definitely. Anthony, tell the viewers why they need to be tuning in on April 5th
Yep. All
to
right.
watch
Here we go.
Family
Netflix.
Reunion on Netflix.
If you don't have Netflix by, if you you know what?
Get them, Ant.
You don't have Netflix by now. Pandemic, quarantine, all that. You don't have it, you got a problem. So Netflix, April 5th, Family Reunion, Part 3, new episodes, April 5th. Just in case you didn't remember, April 5th.
April 5th.
The day after Easter, April 5th. Watch Family Reunion only on Netflix.
Only. I love it. And before I let you go, this was so good, Anthony.
I loved it. This was great.
This
Great
was so good. What does success mean to you?
Happiness.
Mm.
And in all honesty, success is, at the end of the day, saying something that I'm proud of. Something that I can be like, I'm really, really proud of this.
Right.
And in all honesty, I'm proud of everything I've done, but I mean something that I take pride in, that I'm willing to be known for. And the best part of that is I don't think it's happened yet.
Wow.
I think I still have a lot to do. And so when that comes, I think that's when I can kind of finally, like my wife says, finally take a second to sit back and go, this is dope. But we have a long way to go before we get to that point.
Well, sir, I just want to tell you, you are successful in our eyes, and you are there. So
I appreciate it.
I want to give you your flowers. Congratulations. Oh, I mean, you deserve it. And I'm Texas people, right? We're
Texas, man. That's what it is.
You deserve all of your things, Anthony. I'm so excited for you. I can't wait to watch on April 5th. I'll be tuned in. Third part 3, April 5th. You guys make sure you tune in. Anthony, this was so good. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I enjoyed it. I had a great time. Thank you so much.
We used to be the same girl.